Hello everybody, welcome back to the Kelly Parker YouTube page where we are all about creating tech champions. And I actually want to refer back to my first comment ever here on the channel here. So I did a Vagrant video a week or so ago, and I want to address this individual's question. This person's name is user FW9 Junior 2DB3G. They ask, "Sir, suppose we hit Vagrant up at command line, but I want to see a clickable button for Vagrant up. Can you show a little demo in HTML and PHP or Python?" Just trying to make a web interface for it, only to clear my thoughts up. And thank you, user, for commenting on that video. In that video, we talked about how to create multiple VMs easily with Vagrant. But what if we put this on a web page using the power of JavaScript and a little bit of PHP? I actually spent a few days trying to come up with a simple solution to concoct a solution that could maybe provide us an easier way to create and manage your VMs on Vagrant, a GitHub repository of the few files that I used here. And you can check into the description for that. But if you go to github.com/kellyparker/vagrant_web, you'll see I've got a README here, an index.html file, a Vagrant file, which will be using the generic Fedora 38 box that you see right here. Just pulling a generic Fedora 38 image configured with Vagrant, hostname is gonna be Fedora, gig of RAM, and 2 virtual CPUs, and a vm_handler.php file. I'll go into relative detail on what each line of code in these files do, but let's go ahead and get you set up real quick as I show you how to manage your Vagrant instances on your own web page. First thing you're going to want to do is download XAMPP, and it's a free and open source. You'll just simply want to go to download, assuming you're going from Google, and I will be using Windows, not Linux. We're going to go ahead and download the latest version of XAMPP. I used version 8.2.12. Just click on download, then it'll take you to a SourceForge page. You go ahead and download that file, install it, and then after you are done with that, you'll want to open up XAMPP, the control panel specifically, by just typing that in under your search there. And here under your XAMPP control panel, you've got several services. We're only gonna be using the web server functionality of XAMPP. So under Apache, you'll want to click on Start. And as you can see here, your ports are mapped to port 80 and port 443. If you are already using a web page that is tied to either of those ports, simply go into your config, click on config, and then Apache http.conf, and then you'll want to scroll down to line 60 of this file. Change this port number to something like 8000 or 8001 or 8002 or so forth, whichever port that's available on your machine. X out, stop, and restart your Apache service. And once you have your port figured out, go ahead and minimize XAMPP as you will not need it anymore. You'll want to open up your Windows Explorer, and you'll want to go to C:\XAMPP\htdocs. And this is going to be the root of your web server using XAMPP. So what I'd like to simply do is, normally I like to do a git clone, but since it's only a few files, all I'm going to do is go to GitHub, click code, download zip, and then drag that zip to my htdocs folder. And then we're going to go ahead and extract this folder, and its files should be on the root of this directory. So let's go into your Vagrant web main, Control A, Control X to select all and cut. And we will paste right here on the root, and you can delete these two Vagrant folder and zip files. And we're gonna go ahead and open up all 4 of these files in Notepad++, which is my favorite and probably a lot of your favorite text editor of choice. And as you can see here, we have our index.html file, our Vagrant file, our VM handler PHP file, and our README file. We're not really going to focus on the README file, but let's go ahead and focus on the Vagrant file here. We're going to create one virtual machine that uses the generic Fedora 38 image from app.vagrantup.com. Again, the link is in the description if you need to reference to it. We're going to specify the SSH username and password of Vagrant, and we're going to configure the host name of Fedora 1, and we are only configuring the machine with a gig of RAM and 2 virtual CPUs. Don't really need to refer to this Vagrant file again. So our 2 files that are going to be running the show for us are index.html and vm_handler.php. I'll briefly go over each of the files, but on our index.html, the name of the page is going to be Manage Fedora VM. On the body of the page, you're going to see Manage Fedora VM, and we're going to have 4 buttons side by side. One button will start the VM, another will stop the VM, another will destroy the VM, which basically obliterates it to the point where you can create it again from scratch, and then another button to check on the status. And I haven't figured out a way yet to actually show the status like on an ongoing basis like you would see in a terminal. So the kind of point here is trying to minimize the terminal usage, but we will still be using terminal or command prompt in this case to everything's being built on Vagrant. And then we're going to have a span to display Vagrant status, so basically a text box, and then the JavaScript. This is where the magic really happens. So in this little script block from line 24 to line 56, we're basically going to create a function to send a request to the PHP script and display the status response or the responses like for your statuses and your outputs on the status span. Again, the text box is right here. So under your function, we're going to create a variable called xhr, which is a new XML HTTP request. And we're going to open that variable, and we're basically going to get an action. So basically, whenever you click on any of these buttons, they're going to refer to this vm_handler.php file, and it's going to take an action that happens after this equal sign. And basically, it's going to send this command, and if the first button is clicked, it's going to go after the start function of the PHP file. If you click on stop, it'll do stop. We'll do destroy, status, status. So long story short, button 1, button 2, button 3, and button 4. Those get mapped over to the VM handler PHP file, in which we're setting the current directory of the PHP file, which is going to be that root directory right here on XAMPP htdocs. And then here's our function to execute the shell command and handle errors. So again, in this function here, we're just setting an output variable to the shell execution command. So basically this variable is set to execute a command on our terminal or command prompt. And if the output is false, error executing command, just basic error handling. And here are our 4 buttons. These are the actual commands that will be executed. If the command is start, remember, index.html has a send request start. But if start is clicked, we will execute the command of changing to that current directory and running Vagrant up. Because you remember, Vagrant up is what brings up your VM according to the Vagrant file stored in that same working directory. Second button that's clicked will do Vagrant halt, which that is to gracefully shut down the VM. And as you can see, it's changed to the current directory and use Vagrant halt. And then there's destroy for our third button, which will go to run Vagrant destroy -f to destroy the VM in the current directory. Self-explanatory there. And if we want to check the status of our VM, we can go and click on the 4th button. That will change to that current directory and run Vagrant status. So what we're going to do now is open up a web browser tab here on Firefox Private. And assuming your Apache web service is started, we're just simply going to go to localhost/index.html. And as you can see here, we have our Manage Fedora text at the top with our 4 buttons to start, stop, destroy Fedora VM, and show Vagrant status. I'm going to keep my Firefox and my PowerShell side by side here so you can kind of see what's going on in the background. Because I'm going to be using the PowerShell or my PowerShell or my command prompt here to kind of illustrate what's going on in the background. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and just run a Vagrant status on my PowerShell, and it takes a little bit of time for this to run. So these commands don't spit out responses immediately. But as you can see, my VirtualBox is running. So we're going to do a Vagrant destroy -f. That will stop the VM and destroy it. And we will verify that by typing in Vagrant status. And as you can see here, it is not created. Again, we're going to be using VirtualBox for this. So be sure that you have VirtualBox already installed on your computer. We're going to go ahead and clear this output here. Again, our VM is stopped. In fact, it's not created at all. So we're going to go over here to Start Fedora VM. And you're going to have to wait probably up to a minute to get a status message, maybe less than that. But if we go over to the PowerShell and type in Vagrant status, instead of that machine being stopped, you'll see it's now set to power off. That means the machine is actually created, but it's not powered on yet. And as you can see here, it's powered off. But we will get a status message any second here on the web page. And after about half a minute, I still didn't get an update on the page. Oh, now we have an update right here. As you can see here, this is all the output that you would see on your terminal or your command prompt if you ran Vagrant up within your shell. So as you can see here, everything has been configured. And as you see, we have a running Vagrant VM. We're going to run Vagrant SSH default. And as you can see, we are inside our VM. We're going to go and exit from there. And if we want to run Vagrant status again, we'll confirm that the VM is running. But what we're going to do is we're going to stop the VM from the web page. Let's click on Stop Fedora VM and back to our PowerShell. Let's run Vagrant status. And it is still running. Wait. But our status updated on our web page, attempting graceful shutdown of VM. That means it's actually happening. So let's run Vagrant status one more time from our PowerShell, and you'll see it's on power off. So that command succeeded. And if you want to show your Vagrant status from within the web page, you just click on Show Vagrant Status if you want. And I just clicked on it. And again, it takes a few seconds to get a result back, but as you can see, current machine states default power off. So whatever is after power off, that's what you're looking for. And now if we want to destroy Fedora VM, we just click on Destroy Fedora VM like so. We wait a sec, the status will update. And as you can see, destroying VM and associated drives. And if you want to refresh by checking another status, click on Show Vagrant Status. So I really didn't have to click on, or I really didn't have to type in Vagrant status all those times on my PowerShell. You just click on Show Vagrant Status because it's already kind of programmed here. So you can just click once instead of doing up arrow, enter, and whatnot. But as you can see, current machine states default not created. And that is verified whenever we type in Vagrant status here on our PowerShell. The machine is destroyed. So that, in a nutshell, is how you use the power of JavaScript, PHP, and HTML to manage your Vagrant instances. Thanks for stopping by the channel. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Comment down below to ask me other questions that you have about Vagrant. I'll be able to help you out best I can. And if you enjoyed that repo on Vagrant, be sure to check out my other repos at github.com/KellyParker. Click on the link in the description. And if you want to learn something else new in the world of tech, be sure to click this video right here.